Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a best of e.l.f. cosmetics video. I've actually filmed this one other time. I never ended up uploading it because a couple new launches from the brand had actually come out and I wanted to test them and be sure that I could do like a more updated version with some of these really buzzy products. So these are the products from e.l.f. that I personally think are the best, and although some of them might not necessarily be a personal favorite, I do have a few recommendations for people who maybe have a little bit of a different taste in makeup products than I do. Before I forget though, I do want to mention my favorite primer from e.l.f., which is the primer serum. It's the one that comes in a little glass bottle with a tincture applicator on it. Now that's my personal favorite. I've recommended it here and there and definitely spotlighted it a lot on my short form platforms, perhaps not quite as much on my YouTube channel, but that's my absolute favorite primer from e.l.f. I've used it up entirely and I just forgot to pick it up before I filmed this video. So I really like that one. It's super moisturizing, quickly absorbed into the skin. It doesn't feel like another layer of makeup, and although it doesn't necessarily increase your makeup's longevity, it just makes your makeup apply a lot nicer. It keeps the base feeling nice and moisturized and really just preps your skin for makeup application and leaves you with a very subtle, barely noticeable glow. So it's just kind of like skincare slash a good prep step. I love it. Now the other primer from e.l.f. has definitely reached like cult following status. This is the e.l.f. Power Grip Primer. This is amazing and so comparable to higher tier expensive primers, so really great, geared towards longevity. It's not a dewy primer per se, but I do really like the noticeable bounce and plushness that this gives to my skin, and it doesn't affect makeup's set down. So if I use this with a dewy finish foundation, foundation stays dewy. If I use it with a matte foundation, foundation still stays matte. So I just like the overall healthy look that it gives my skin. I find it to even have a slight texture blurring effect on the skin. It's really great for just all over the face and really amping up your makeup's longevity throughout the day. It will really lock your makeup in place as well. This is great for hot weather, but it's great year round. I feel like this even really helps hide dry patches on my skin because I have a dry skin type, so sometimes depending on the season, you can see dry patches on my skin. I like how this helps hide those. e.l.f. also has their Sun Touchable Whoa Glow SPF 30. So this is their luminizer packed SPF for the face. It's beautiful, it's lightweight, it doesn't feel greasy, which I think is huge. This one just doesn't feel as oily as a lot of other facial sunscreens do on my skin. So I absolutely love that. And I think that the pearl on this is really nice and soft and it looks great on its own with just a little bit of spot concealer. And I don't want to deter you into thinking that this has any type of visible coverage on the skin, but it definitely makes the complexion look a lot more glowy and a lot more even toned, which I really love. And I've just found this to be such a lovely product. I was really impressed with it. I did have higher standards for it because I am a Supergoop lover, and I felt like a lot of people were saying that this was a dupe for the Glow Screen by Supergoop, and so I thought it was going to be really great. So I went into it with high expectations and it lived up to the expectations. I think this is a gorgeous, luminous sunscreen in its own right. Now for the major glow lovers, the e.l.f. Halo Glow Liquid Filter Glow Booster for radiant skin. Again, I've mentioned this many times, but I have two shades. Back when this was going viral, it was really hard to get your hands on a singular shade, and actually looking back on it, I'm really glad I have the both because I can always create a custom shade for my skin tone. So I mixed the shades number 1 and number 5, and it always works really well for me. Sometimes I'll use number 1 on its own, sometimes number 5 on its own, sometimes them mixed together. It's just a really great formula I have going here, having the two options. This is a dupe for the Charlotte Tilbury Liquid Hollywood Flawless Filter. Definitely extremely comparable. I would say if you don't want to splurge on the Charlotte Tilbury one, again, it's a beautiful product, the one from Charlotte Tilbury, but the e.l.f. one is a really great affordable option as well. It still gives you that really gorgeous, like evened out complexion, a little bit of filter, a gorgeous luminous pop on the skin. It looks beautiful underneath makeup or mixed in with your makeup, and it leaves the skin so beautifully filtered and luminous. But one of my new favorite ways to use this has been on top of foundation. So I've mentioned before, you can use it like on top of the high points of your face to create a highlighted look, but I also really like it on top of foundation all over my entire face. So when I was doing my makeup for today, I really wanted to show you like a combo that I'm liking. So it needs to be a lighter coverage foundation that you wear underneath of this. Otherwise the coverage gets a little bit out of hand and it can kind of get a little bit too cakey looking. So I paired it with the Chantecaille Future Skin Foundation, and I put this all over on top of my base, and it just instantaneously woke up my complexion, really gave my skin a little bit of extra pep, and I think it looks so beautiful and delicate on top of either like a light tinted moisturizer or a light coverage foundation. If you try it on something that's a little bit more in the medium to full coverage arena, it starts to get a little bit more makeup-y, so definitely try this on top of your makeup. It just adds this instant glow and you get this really soft, gorgeous, luminous finish to your skin, which I think is so beautiful. So this has my stamp of approval 500 times over. Okay, so moving into base coverage, I'm gonna say the e.l.f. Camo CC Cream is my personal favorite. This one I have right here is in the shade medium 330W, which is a pretty much spot on match for my skin tone. However, if I'm being completely honest with you, the makeup preferences and the way I like to do my makeup right now, I find myself wiping products off a lot if they're like too full coverage. I just don't think it looks good on my face. Like I feel like I just don't look like myself. I've always liked light to medium coverage, but even now more so, I find myself just not into the way my skin looks if it's too full coverage, like to the point where I feel uncomfortable wearing that much makeup out in public. It's also just like, you know, I think it's the trend right now. It's not really the trend to be super full coverage, so I'm rambling now, but I just don't like anything too full coverage right now, and I never have. But with the e.l.f. Camo CC Cream, it's a really dry, highly pigmented formula. So on its own, it's a lot. So the way I like to use it is mix it in with a facial moisturizer. I find the coverage is a lot more wearable for my preferences, and it shears out over my skin so much more nicely because the skin just looks a little bit more hydrated, and the product moves a little bit more fluidly on my skin, versus when I try to shear it out, it doesn't move quite as nice over the skin. So this on top of a hydrated base and just slightly sheared out, it's perfect, and it's long wearing. And the coverage is great because, again, you can shear it out. So it's customizable in that sense, which I really like. I really love this one. This is the e.l.f. Flawless Brightening Concealer. Beautiful, perfect, amazing, perfect concealer. It's a little clicker pen concealer, very fluid, beautiful, lightweight coverage, gorgeous underneath the eyes. Just gonna provide you with that light, milky veil of coverage, never over the top, and just kind of like melts into the skin, becomes one with your base, enhances your natural beauty, and just gives you that light, you know, brightening, milky coverage. So perfect, obsessed, love, can't get enough of. Now, e.l.f. also does have more full coverage formulas, which I would recommend to people that have problem areas or just areas on the face that you're really concerned, or if you like a little bit more of a flawless, beamed up, bright complexion. There is the matte version, which quite honestly does not really work for my skin. But if I had like an oilier skin type, I think this would be great because the coverage is amazing. Think a la Tarte Shape Tape. That's the vibe from this, but it doesn't work for me. I oftentimes just use this one as an eyeshadow primer. And then they also have the like satin dewy finish version, and I think this one's a lot better. I like this one underneath the eyes occasionally, but just a little bit. You will see this is extremely full coverage, and again, makes a really nice eyeshadow primer for me. Just a little bit too much for day to day. I think it serves a place in a makeup bag, perhaps not in your everyday routine, but reached for on days where you need a little bit of extra coverage. I find the satin one to also just be so much more natural looking than the matte one, and a little bit less intense and a little bit less of that extreme coverage to where you can still shear this out and it'll look a little bit more natural. When you're using either of these, I 100% recommend sponge application method. The sponge is going to help really soak up that excess product and prevent it from looking too cakey. Oftentimes with like a brush or a fingertip, I just feel like it looks so full on even when it's just a little bit of product. So definitely damp beauty sponge is the way to go with these. Now, I actually have the old packaging of this. This now comes in, I believe, like a candy pink lid. This is the e.l.f. Halo Glow Powder. Again, been such a staple in my makeup routine for years. I almost always recommend this to you when I'm talking about powders in general, because the beautiful thing about this powder is it's loose, so it's very finely milled, very silky on the skin, and I find that these like loose powders, you can really go in with the smallest amount and they spread so beautifully across the skin like a silk powder. The great thing about the one from e.l.f. in the Halo Glow line is that this has a luminous finish. So if you like dewy skin products, if you like a little bit of extra glow, if you don't want to, you know, completely mattify your skin, this is what you want to reach for. It's gonna lock your makeup in place and help prevent creasing, migrating, or movement on the face, as well as help negate the makeup's breakdown throughout the day without mattifying you. So you'll still get that really gorgeous like light popping off of the high points of the face. You'll still have that really gorgeous, light, luminous, healthy looking complexion without the effect of it looking over powder. It's also magical in the sense that you can tone down greasiness and shine with it. A staple, I've had this one for a couple years now, and I use such a small amount, it'll probably expire before I can use it up, but this is without a doubt like one of the best powders at the drugstore you can try. The e.l.f. setting spray is also really great. Super microfine nozzle on this, so you're always gonna get a really great even application all over the skin. No driblets here. I never deal with like the bibbity bobs and driblets, and then, you know, sometimes if the nozzle isn't consistent, you get the driblets on the skin, and then it almost like eats the makeup in certain areas, so you have like holes going on. Never had that issue with the e.l.f. one. Setting spray is also a phenomenal tool at taking away an over powdered look, so if you've perhaps gone a little bit overboard and applied a little bit too much powder, and also for re-wetting and reworking the base. So if you feel like you've overdone it on the liquid coverage products, or you didn't have enough time to blend because things were setting down a little bit too quickly, gently re-wet the skin with a little bit of this setting mist, go back in with your application tool. You can shear products out again, or you can kind of like re-blend and almost like reactivate those liquid products before they set back down. It's a good one, it works, it's comparable to a lot of other high-end, long-lasting makeup setting sprays. The blush and bronzer space from e.l.f. in terms of what I like the best doesn't need much explanation. I think you can tell I like the putty line. So within the blush and bronzer putty line from e.l.f., there is just the original, which is kind of like a satin matte formula, which has no shimmer, and that would just be the original putty blushes. And then they also have the original putty bronzers as well. So these ones are just your typical cream bronzers, but they also have the luminous putty blushes, which have a strobe to them, and then the luminous putty bronzers, which also have a strobe to them. Let's decode the blushes really quick. So with these two shades, I tried to choose two that were like somewhat similar when showcasing the original putty versus the luminous putty. So the blush I'm swatching for you is Tahiti, which is the original putty, and then in the luminous putty I am showing you my personal favorite shade, which is Maui. Maui is gorgeous. So with the original putty blush from e.l.f., think of these as a slightly more punchy version. They are definitely more buildable in my experience, and although semi-transparent, like you can still kind of see my base underneath this blush, it still has the ability to get like pretty punchy and pretty, you know, dramatic if that's the vibe you're going for. They set down to a moussey satin finish, but throughout the day, the putty one does look a little bit more dewy. You can negate that just by setting it with powder though, or putting a little bit of powder blush on top. Oops, but because it is a cream, it does tend to get like a little bit more skin-like, especially if you have an oily skin type, you'll see it a little bit more. Now with the luminous putty blush, what I really like about these, and the reason that they're my favorite, is because yes, there is that soft pinkness to the blush, but they're so luminous and so strobed looking that they just really give you that gorgeous pop on the cheek without being like too dramatic or too glittery. And I think that they just instantaneously give you that really healthy glow on the cheeks. Although the luminous putty blushes are buildable, they're not quite as buildable as the original formula, just because I find that, you know, when you're building the original formula, the color is going to get more intense, and yes, you will see a little bit more opacity from the color itself, but when you're building up the luminous one, it does hit a certain point where it's like, a little bit too much of a strobe, and I don't wear like a ton of blush full on. So for me, this formula works really well because I just want like a little kiss of color on the apples of the cheeks versus like the original. I like the Luminous better. Original version just has a little bit more visible pigment to the actual product. However, you could pair the two together. I'm not against that too. I've paired the Luminous on top of the original. I really like the way it looks. So it's kind of choose what you want, but I don't think if you like have them both, you're gonna reach for one more than the other because you can use them together and they work really well together. The other Luminous putty blush I really like is the shade Bermuda. I love these. They're great. They're great colors, great formula. Decoding the putty bronzers, which are just kind of like essentially the same formula as the blushes, with the Luminous putty bronzers. Obviously side by side, you can already tell the Luminous one just got that flashback right in the pan. When it comes to the original putty bronzer, it's really great for anybody that wants a little bit more of a matte finish. The formula is still buildable. You can customize the intensity that you want out of this product, and it looks very similar to the blush. Not the shade obviously, but the finish on the skin. Now when it comes to the Luminous putty bronzer, I again like this better than the original, but again, you could wear them together with the Luminous on top and you'd get more of a multi-dimensional look. So don't think you have to pick one or the other. I think the great thing about the putty products is that you can mix them together and they look even better. So with the Luminous one though, this is really great for just like a glowy, really bronze, healthy, enhanced complexion. It's gorgeous. It's buildable, but again, because of that strobe, you can go a little bit overboard sometimes, which I'm guilty of. They're good. I love the putty bronzers and the putty blushes. Okay, now let's talk about the e.l.f. Halo Glow Wands. So the Contour Beauty Wand is the shade Tan Deep. That's the shade I use. I really like the tiny micro fine puffball applicators on these. I think it's a lot smaller than the typical ones that you'll see, whether that's high-end or drugstore. And I like that this one has a lot of pigmentation, but overall a really great one. And I think the best contour wand I've tried from the drugstore line in terms of especially this shade Tan Deep. It works really well for my skin tone. I've tried some other contour wands from the drugstore that are like really red and they just don't work for contouring, but great, and you can increase the longevity by setting it with powder. I have the Champagne Campaign highlight. I think this is beautiful. It's sheer, but still buildable, but always looks really nice and natural. It's not like over the top. Definitely comparable to a lot of other high-end liquid highlights, but obviously at the e.l.f. price point, you get the best of both worlds. So yeah, I have nothing negative to say about the e.l.f. Halo Glow Highlight Wand. I think this is really wonderful. And then with the blushes. Now I have feelings about these. I think they work really well, 10 out of 10 every time as a blush topper. And I also think the shade Candlelit on its own is a really pretty sheer, kind of like apricot coral blush, and it's not too intensely strobed. It's just a really beautiful color on its own or as a topper. Rosé You Slay could be my skin tone, or I don't really know. This one, the formula is slightly different for me to where it looks a little bit patchy when it's worn on its own. I also just am like not the biggest fan of this shade on its own. I feel like mixed with Candlelight, it's really pretty, or used on top of another pink or bronze blush, it looks gorgeous. But I don't know, Rosé You Slay, I've tried it twice. No, I've tried it because I did the demo today too. I've tried it 3 times on its own. Every time I've had to start over from the beginning because it just always looks patchy. So I still recommend it, but if you want one that you can wear on your own, go with Candlelit or one of the other shades. But if you're using it as a topper, gorgeous. And they're a lot more strobed and pearlescent than the Luminous Putty blushes. Okay, let's talk about brows. e.l.f. has the Brow Lift product. Do I even need to say it? You know what this is a dupe for. The Anastasia Brow Freeze. And it works just as well. This is a intense kind of spackle-like product for your brows. Really great for anybody that wants a little bit more versatility. You can slick your brows down and just get like, you know, keep them in place all day. Or you can really achieve that feathered brow look. I look crazy when I feather my brows or when I try to do like that laminated look. It's just like I look evil. But this works really well for that as well. So kind of like you can fit this to your fancy on how you like to do your brows. It's great. Clear brow gel, industrial strength as well, sweat proof and humidity proof, and it's just all around such a great brow gel. I want to talk about the e.l.f. No Budge Cream eyeshadows. I've tried 3 shades of these. The previous 2 I purchased for like all over the lid. They didn't work. They were dry, they creased, they were horrible. They actually like started literally crumbling off of my eyes and they would like fall underneath my eyes. However, I really like the brown shade, which is Plateau, as an eyeliner. That is strictly what I use this for. I actually use it pretty regularly as an eyeliner. Just pick it up on a, fine eyeliner brush. You can also use it to put little freckles and moles on your face. The shade is great, very versatile. You could use it as an eyeshadow base to kind of smoke shadows on top of it. I found, weirdly enough, that this brown shade specifically, it seems to be formulated differently than the other 2 that I had. And this is creamy, emollient, slick, dries down, doesn't crumble. Fabulous as an eyeliner. Just, that's what I would suggest it to you for. So if you like an eyeliner that you can do like structured liquid looks with, or really smudge it out with your fingertip as well to get a little bit more of a hazy vibe going, this is the one you want. Now, e.l.f. also does have shadow sticks. I like these. I don't think they're the most pigmented thing in the world, which I'm okay with because I don't ever do dramatic eyeshadow looks. I just feel like sometimes they work for me, but like for day to day, if I'm going to use something, it's got to be a color that I like, and I get excited when I use up an eyeshadow because it's great. So I have 3 shades to talk about. Perfect Pearl, really great underneath the brow bone, in the corner of the eye to add some space on that eyelid, accentuate the brow arch, give you that really beamed up nice inner corner, and it also looks good as a face highlight too. I've tried it on my face multiple times and been super happy with it. And then I also have Champagne Crystal, really nice. It's just an all over the lid color, smudged out with your fingertips. And then Copper Chic, which is really nice for like the outer corner, or an all over lid color, lower lash line. It's just a little bit deeper, really pretty color. So e.l.f.'s mascaras. I've tried a lot of them. I like a lot of them, but the one that I think is really great is the Big Mood waterproof version. I do really like the brush, and I like the impactfulness that this mascara has. It's very dramatic, so it's not my personal favorite like daytime mascara, but for like nighttime or paired with a smoky eye or a thicker eyeliner, it really holds its own and beefs those lashes up. And I like that it's waterproof because it lasts so much longer. The brush is really nice, formula is really nice, it doesn't flake, it doesn't crumble. It's good mascara. Best one I've tried from e.l.f. out of all of them. e.l.f. has some of the most amazing tinted lip balms, the Ride or Die lip balms. I've talked about Tough Cookie on my channel for years. Literally years. This is one of my favorite everyday lip shades. And then they also have like gorgeous light pink ones. There's like a black cherry tinted one, and then if you're not into tinted, they also have a clear. The balm itself is phenomenal. If you remember the Bite Agave lip mask, it is like that. It is so nourishing, it is so hydrating. Once it's off of your lips just look insanely moisturized and just gorgeous. Like, it really adds a beautiful pillowy softness to your lips. So definitely worth checking out. These are so good, can't recommend them enough. Like, these are one of the best in my opinion. And then e.l.f. also has these little lip tints. I can never remember the names of these for me because it just says the shades. So I have Basic Beige, which is a really gorgeous, not really beige, it's more of like a rosy shade, which I love. And then Cinnamon Dreams, which is a deep, cool toned, oaky brown. Stunning. I love Cinnamon Dreams. This one's like one of my favorite lip colors of all time. The really unique thing about these is that the longer you wear them, the glossier and more glazed they look. Usually, it's the opposite. Usually, the longer you wear lip color, the more like it loses its gloss and that like gorgeous finesse that it has on the lips. These look better the longer that you wear them, and then they leave the lips with a slight tint on them. I would personally recommend Cinnamon Dreams. That's like, because I just really like this shade a lot, and it's unique to find a drugstore lip product that has that gorgeous like true brown finish on the lips. So this is like a diamond in the rough at the drugstore in my opinion. Everything's like pink, red, purple, you know, but yeah, this is a really great shade. So that is everything I wanted to mention for my best of e.l.f. video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. Please let me know the next, I was gonna say store. Please let me know the next brand you want to see me do a best of video on. I've done one on Chanel, NYX, NYX, Say, and Merit. Those are the ones I've done one on so far. Now we're adding e.l.f. to the roster, so let me know any other like brand overview that you want to see a full-fledged video on with demos. And I think that's everything I wanted to mention, so I'm gonna list and link everything in the description box down below for you. I will have my TikTok and my Instagram as well in the description box. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already, and leave a comment to say hi. I want to talk to you. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.